I spend as much time talking Christian couples out of adopting as I do trying to cast a vision why they should. Because the Bible calls all of us to care for widows and orphans in their distress, James 1:27. That applies to every single one of us. That doesn't mean that all of us are called to adopt. And so sometimes you will have Christians who will think, well, if I really care about orphans, the only way I can do that is to adopt. Somebody who's not called or equipped to adopt shouldn't be doing it. And that's especially true if you have someone who's thinking, well, if I adopt, that's going to fix maybe something in my marriage, or that's going to help me to get my life together. That is too big of a burden to place upon the life of a child. What has to happen in thinking this through is just to ask the question, God, you've told us all through the Bible that the people of God are to care for orphans and vulnerable children. How would you have me to do that? How would you have us to do that? And sometimes, and then just wait on the Lord to give you a sense and understanding of your own gifts, your own family, your own desires, and let the Lord work those around. Sometimes you're going to have someone who may perhaps be an elderly family, and they say, well, we can't adopt, but we have the financial means to help someone who is. Or you may have someone who's a very young single person who says, well, I'm not in the point in my life where I would adopt, but and I don't have any financial means, but I can be involved with a family that's adopting, or I can be a part of a mission trip that's dealing with the vulnerable children somewhere in North America or around the world. And so just asking the question, I think, is the big first step of what should we do. And then if someone does think, well, I think maybe the Lord is leading us to adopt, what's important is to not rush that. Sometimes you'll have a couple, and one person in the couple says, I'm really, really strongly drawn to do this, and the other is not. Don't force that. Let that let the Lord work. That's what happened in our family. My wife first was really drawn and convicted that we should adopt, and I wasn't at first. And what she did was to say, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it together. And that means that if God's leading me, God will lead him. And she prayed for that to happen, and it did. She didn't try to manipulate me or to berate me or put little cute pictures of orphans on the breakfast table. She just said, we're going to wait and see what the Lord does, and that's exactly what he did. And so it may be that you have somebody who is really, really reluctant toward adoption for all sorts of reasons at the very beginning, that the Lord just completely changes and turns around. So I would say have patience with that. And then the final thing I would say is make sure that you know what it is that you're doing. Jesus says you don't build a tower without counting the cost, and that's true here as well. Adopting a child, just like giving birth to a child, brings with it all sorts of responsibilities that you're going to carry for the rest of your life. And you can't predict what this child is going to be, what particular burdens he or she is going to bear. And that's especially true when you're dealing with someone who is coming out of any number of levels of trauma. And so having the sense of we're committing to you, whatever happens from this point forward, and we're ready for that with the help of God, is necessary.